What's up guys, Justin Johnson here. In this video, I'm gonna teach you the 5 biggest pitfalls that all guitar players have to face, and I'm gonna give you the solutions to overcome these 5 pitfalls. Now these 5 things, again, happen to every guitar player. They're pretty much unavoidable, and they're things you really have to understand and things that you have to overcome in order to get past that beginner phase of guitar playing. Now, because these 5 things challenge beginner guitar players at that early stage, and because beginner guitar players generally don't know how to solve these problems or even identify them or know that they exist, it's probably also the 5 top reasons why beginners will quit guitar after, maybe playing for a few weeks or a few months. So they blame themselves, they end up quitting guitar, and it could all be avoided. I'm gonna break into it right now, and please, if you're a beginner guitar player, you'll definitely wanna watch this video till the end, because I guarantee at some point you're gonna have to deal with these issues, and I'm gonna tell you how to overcome them. Okay, to start off with, the first pitfall that every guitar player faces is the possibility that you might be playing with a poorly set up guitar. Just because you have a guitar doesn't mean it's a guitar that is gonna be good for you to learn on. And even if it's a nice guitar or a guitar that maybe was passed down to you from a family member and you've seen them play it, it doesn't mean that the guitar is set up properly and that it's going to be good enough for you to learn how to play guitar on. Now that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a new guitar. It just means that there are some things that you need to understand about what a good setup is, and basically start the whole learning process on guitar out on the right foot. So here's the solution to this problem. I think that before you even start playing guitar, when you get a guitar and you're unfamiliar with it, you need to seek out the help of someone who is familiar with guitar. You need to talk to a guitar player who's comfortable with guitars and knows a little bit about them. Show them your guitar and ask them if this is going to work for me or not. I don't know how many times I've had people show me their guitar and they're learning and they're saying like, I'm about to quit. I just am totally frustrated. And I look at what they're playing and I'm thinking like, I don't think anyone could really make this guitar work. And especially you wouldn't want to learn on this guitar. So here's some of the things you need to look out for. First of all, the setup needs to be good on a guitar. And that starts with the string height. That's also called action. So the action needs to be low enough to where it's comfortable to fret notes, like on the fretboard here. So it should be low enough to where that sounds good, but it should be high enough to where you don't get like a buzz, so the strings aren't like buzzing against the fretboard and giving you a weird sound like that. You also have to have good intonation. And intonation is something that can be a little tricky to set up on the guitar. It involves the nut right here being at the right height, and it involves the saddle or the bridge over here to be at the right distance from the nut. In accordance with your string height. You don't have to know how to do all of this, but it's important to know that if this isn't all set up right, you're going to be fretting notes and you could be playing the exact right thing and have good technique, but it still will sound out of tune. And if you don't realize that your intonation's out, you're going to blame yourself and you're going to think you're doing something wrong. So make sure you check your intonation. Take it to someone who can test your guitar out, either a guitar player that you know, or take it to a guitar store. Ask them to check it out. You might need new strings. You might need to have your action and intonation adjusted. Okay, so that was the first pitfall. Basically making sure that you're not playing with a poorly set up guitar. The next pitfall is something, again, that every guitar player is going to face. Pitfall number 2 is finger pain when you're first starting to play the guitar. It is absolutely unavoidable to a degree for you to have to build up calluses on your fingers and for you to experience a little bit of pain or discomfort in your fingertips when you first start playing guitar. It's just a physical inevitability that the act of pushing against steel strings generally is going to give you a little bit of discomfort in your fingertips. Everyone has to build up calluses. It's a stage that you go through as a beginner guitar player. But there are definitely some ways to make that process less painful, make that process a lot easier for you, and allow you to practice longer with a lot less pain and discomfort along the way. And that's what I'm going to let you know about here in this section. First of all, again, I want to say it's super normal for your fingertips to be feeling uncomfortable or having some pain in your fingertips when you first start playing. You do not ever want pain in your wrist or your fingers or anything like that, your shoulder, your neck. That means you're probably using bad posture, and I'm going to get into that later. But fingertip pain just comes naturally a little bit when you first start playing, especially when you're playing this type of instrument. The steel string acoustic guitar, by nature, has heavier strings, they have more tension, and they're harder to push down with your fingers. So if you're learning on an acoustic steel string guitar, you're going to have, 2 or 3 times the difficulty pushing in frets than I think you would if you were learning on an electric guitar or a nylon string acoustic guitar, classical guitar. But don't worry, there's some easy workarounds for this. First of all, this is the number one thing I would recommend. If you're starting out on an acoustic guitar like this with steel strings, then I would recommend you change the strings to a pack of what's called silk and steel strings. Silk and steel strings are still acoustic guitar strings, so they still sound like acoustic guitar strings. But instead of having like a metal core, like a thick steel core in these bass strings, it basically has a really thin metal core, and it has silk wrapped around that, and then it has the wrapping on the string around that. So the tension is way easier to deal with. It still sounds good, you still learn how to play, you're still building up calluses, but it's just not going to be nearly as painful on your fingertips as playing a steel string guitar like this when you first start. One of the other good aspects of that is if you're reducing the strain on your fingertips, that means you can practice for longer when you first start out. So you're going to be getting better faster. You're going to be learning your open chords, learning all of these things right off the bat a lot quicker because your practice routine can go a little bit longer as you're building your calluses. If you don't know how to change your strings yet, take it to a guitar store, take it to a guitar tech, or take it to a guitar player that you know, and just ask if they'll put this pack of strings on for you. It shouldn't be an issue at all. Another thing you can do as you're developing your calluses, and I always recommend this to players at any skill level, if you're getting any fatigue in your fingertips or in your hands, I always think it's good to soak your hands in hot water. It will increase your circulation. It will loosen the muscles, it will soften your calluses and your fingertips, and it'll ease a lot of the discomfort you might be feeling when you're first starting out. Okay, so that was the second pitfall, experiencing fingertip pain while you're playing the guitar. All right, so the third pitfall that every guitar player has to deal with has to do with bad posture, or developing good posture, I should say, and controlling the guitar. I get asked all the time, like, why is this happen? Why am I muting strings when I play a chord like this? That's an E minor. And they look at their hands and they think like, man, my fingers are in the right position. I'm hitting the right strings. Why is this so difficult? And then I'll say, send me a video, or like, tell me about your posture. 90% of the time, if you're having problems with those things, it's because of the way you're sitting, it's because of how you're holding the guitar. Okay, to start off, I think it's really good practice to just hold the guitar without your left hand. And first of all, you're going to be balancing and controlling the guitar. It's going to be resting on basically the top of your thigh right here, right next to your body. It's not going to be out here, down your leg further. It's going to be right against your torso. The guitar right here is going to be touching, like your rib cage right here. And then, this is really important, put your hand basically where you would be picking, and then rest your forearm against the edge of the guitar. It's going to be in a slightly different spot on your forearm depending on what type of guitar you have, but it's always put your hand in playing position, like where you might be easily, picking the guitar with your palm a little bit on this side of the bridge right here, and then feel where your forearm is and just feel the 3 points of contact with your body. Your forearm, your ribs, and the top of your thigh right there, the top of your leg. And you should be able to very easily, very comfortably just hold the guitar up like this with no left hand. So often people start playing the guitar and they're holding the guitar up with this hand. That's the way they're controlling the guitar, and then they're all over the place with their right hand. It should be like this. You should be able to tilt the guitar up or down easily. You should be able to move it in and out. And it's really good practice when you're first starting out to just hold the guitar. Don't even play it. Hold the guitar without your left hand and just learn how to control it. Learn how to be casual with it and just always have it in control without the use of your left hand. Because when you start playing, you want to be able to control what's going on the fretboard with your left hand. You don't want to have to hold the weight of the guitar up. The only thing your left hand should be doing is focusing on what it's fretting and doing that comfortably and cleanly. All right, guys, that was the third pitfall that every guitar player faces, basically poor posture and a lack of guitar control. Now, this fourth pitfall has to do with fretting open chords. Open chords are basically, I'd say, the foundational thing that most, if not all, guitar players learn when they start out. Open chords are basically chords that you fret down here with your fretting hand, and they utilize open strings. They're usually on the first few frets here, but they're really the foundational thing you should learn as a guitar player. And I think that's where most people get started. But there are some things that I think are challenges right off the bat that I hear time and time again, and I'm going to go ahead and give you some good workarounds for what I feel like the biggest challenges are with open chords. But when you first start playing open chords, you know, a lot of times like this E major right here, you'll play it and you'll strum, and you'll think, hey, that sounds good. But what I always suggest, and this is going to make sure that you're using the best posture and that you're actually learning the right muscle memory when you learn an open chord, is don't strum when you're doing this the first time. I think it's good to hit every string one at a time. And the reason that you want to do that as opposed to strumming is because you might not hear some of the strings that you're muting or some of the frets that you're not totally pushing down. Like if I were to have, you know, if I had bad posture here and I strummed, I think like, oh, that sounds good, you know? I can hear a chord, but then you go through one string at a time. And you're like, wait a second, there's all of these half fretted notes. I'm muting strings that shouldn't be muted. But again, when I strum it, to my ear as a beginner guitar player, I might be thinking, I nailed it. And then you move on to the next chord. And what you're doing is you're reinforcing bad muscle memory in your fretting hand. So that's what you have to do with every open chord that you're learning. You have to go through and then one string at a time, make sure every note sounds good. And you can just do this with your thumb. It doesn't have to be anything challenging. You can do it just one note at a time. And then you'll know for sure, is it a good chord? Am I learning good muscle memory or am I learning bad muscle memory? So let me break into some tips that'll help you transition between these chords a lot better and really fast track your progress when it comes to learning how to do this. So the first step is, again, you want to get a clean chord. Let's take this A minor chord. And of course, like I said, the way you can tell if it's a clean chord or not is by going one string at a time. So there it is. But once it's comfortable, stop and think about the entire posture of your left hand. This is a huge key. I want you to listen to this and really internalize this as a beginner guitar player. So many times people will waste years on just thinking about what's on this side of the fretboard when so much of it has to do with what's going on back here. So when you play that A minor chord, think about what part of the neck is touching your hand and where. Like right, for me, it's right there. And everyone's hands are shaped differently, so it's going to be slightly different for every person. That's why the key is to get comfortable and get a clean sounding chord first. And then I say, okay, where's my thumb? My thumb is wrapped around right here. For some people, it might be right here. You know, but this is a clean chord for me. I also like to use my thumb to mute that low E string on an A minor. So that's my comfortable posture. what angle, what direction is my forearm approaching the neck from? So again, I'm thinking behind the fretboard, and that's the key here. Don't just think about these 3 fingers on the fretboard. Think about it like this, where I'm approaching it from this direction, from this height. I've got my thumb here, the neck is touching my hand right there, and everything's clean. Again, if I'm in the wrong posture like this, I'm definitely going to be hitting that open string on the high E with this index finger. So if that happens, then remind yourself, okay, I got to have better posture. I got to lift my neck up. I've got to rotate things until every note becomes clean. If I were to strum that, it would still sound like an A minor in bad posture. If I go through string by string, I've identified the problem. Now I need to rotate the neck. And now I'm in good posture. So all of these things should be going through your mind when you're first learning open chords. And then once you have good posture, really pay attention to all of the details behind the neck, and then do this. Take your hand off of the fretboard and try to go back to where you just were. Do that like 10 times. So what you're doing when you're doing this is you're not just locking in this comfortable shape once you have it. You're getting this muscle memory developing, saying, okay, there's the shape. You don't have to take your hand way off of the neck. Just open it up and then go back to where you were. Open it up, go back to where you were. Open it up, go back to where you were. So in order to cleanly transition between chords, you have to at least be able to play one of the chords, all of the chords, by themselves cleanly. If you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to transition between chords, different chords, quickly, smoothly, cleanly. All right, so that was number 4. That was the 4th pitfall that every guitar player faces, struggling with open chords. So the 5th and final pitfall that I want to talk about in this video also has to do with playing open chords, but specifically transitioning smoothly between open chords. That's a huge challenge for beginner guitar players. So in this section, I'm going to tell you some tips on how you can clean things up and how you can develop smoother and quicker transitions between these open chords when you're playing a chord progression. And it's something that I wish I knew when I was starting to learn open chords, because it would have helped me learn a lot better muscle memory right off the bat. And that is that when you're changing chords, you want to try to put all of your fingers down at the same time. When I first started, I would be playing, let's say, something like a C, and I would always put like one finger down and then the next and then the next, like that. And I'd be looking at it and I'd be kind of arching my head and coming over like that. That's what I think happens when you're first starting to learn open chords. But what you want to try to do, again, get that chord comfortable, internalize your posture behind the fretboard, behind the neck, take your fingers off, and when you put them on, all 3 at the same time. So think about it like a piano player. A piano player hits all the keys for a chord at the same time. That's what makes a chord. And I want you to think about that motion and that philosophy when you're putting your fingers down for open chords. So when you're changing to a D right here from a C, all the fingers at once, boom, back to the C, boom, back to the D, boom, boom. That's going to do 2 things. First of all, if you learn how to play that way, your transitions are going to be way faster and way cleaner than if you do one of these. Where you're kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can't play good, fast, smooth chord changes that way. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to really lock in that muscle memory that you need. Like, boom, there's my D. You're going to just be so much more intuitive with where the strings are in your muscle memory, right? Like that, G, D, C. And you can feel your fingers hit it once, and it's going to be a clean chord change. You'll be able to do that much quicker, and you're going to develop as a better guitar player a lot quicker if you focus on that from the beginning. You know, when you're just starting to learn how to put your fingers on the fretboard, there's going to be a little bit of that, like moving around. But once you have the shape in there, and you're practicing like I suggested by taking your hand off and putting it back on, once you have that kind of muscle memory sort of developing, take it off, put them all back at once, like the piano coming down. D. Take it off, D, put it back. That way, again, when you're learning these and you're learning this muscle memory, you do this hundreds and you do this thousands of times as you're practicing open chords in different ways in different songs. Always focus on those things. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I truly believe that if you take this advice, I think you will immediately see some differences in how you're playing, how you're sounding, and how you're developing as a guitar player. I encourage you, if you want to learn more in-depth lessons from me, check out my instructional platform. It's at justinjohnsonguitar.com. I have an entire comprehensive section on there, a series called Guitar 101 that's devoted specifically to beginner guitar players. It takes you from, maybe never even picking up a guitar all the way through learning these chords, learning how to tune, learning how to finger pick, learning how to strum, learn how to read chord changes, learn how to read guitar music, guitar tablature, all of that in that Guitar 101 course. So if you're enjoying this lesson and you want to dig in deeper, definitely check out justinjohnsonguitar.com. I also have hundreds and hundreds of lessons on there for all skill levels. So if you like some of my more advanced music, the performances you've seen me do online, you can learn them there. I go into a ton of detail about my playing style, so please check it out. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. See you next time.